Today's webinar is all about upselling and how to get the most out of it to generate revenue from your guests by helping to recommend local tours and activities to them. We are doing this today in partnership with one of our upsell partners, which is Localbird. I'm excited to be joined by Ben from Localbird. Ben, do you want to introduce yourself real quick and provide maybe a high-level overview on what Localbird is?
Yeah, first of all, I'm excited to be here. Localbird is the leading online concierge platform for vacation rentals. We help property managers and hosts offer their guests different types of activities, transportation, massages, private chefs, and much more on demand across the US and Latin America. Really excited to be here and tell you more.
Awesome, cool. Thank you, Ben. I am Cassandra. I am head of sales here at StayFi. As many of you probably already know, StayFi is very oriented towards helping property managers and owners increase their repeat and direct bookings by collecting data from every single person staying at your properties so that you can remarket to all of your previous guests. However, we're also interested in helping hosts drive as much revenue as possible through as many channels as possible, one of those being upsells, of course. So today on the call, we are planning to cover what upselling is and why it matters. Then Ben is going to talk us a little bit through how Localbird offers five-star guest experiences and what experiences guests are actually booking right now. I'll talk a little bit more about how and when to get your upsells in front of guests. I'll show you how to integrate Localbird into StayFi. We'll touch on a case study, and then we'll leave some time for Q&A at the end. That said, if you do have any questions during this session, please do use the Q&A section of Zoom. There's a little chat box for you to enter your questions into. Okay. And then if those questions are relevant, Ben or myself will answer them as we go along, or we should have plenty of time at the end of the webinar too. And then you'll also be able to follow up with either one of us post-webinar. So getting started here with what upselling is and why it matters. If you aren't already familiar with upsells, these are add-on services, products, goods, amenities, or experiences that you can offer to your guests for an additional fee. Upsells do help to enhance the guest experience overall, and they do provide you with an additional source of revenue. They have been trending in the vacation rental industry, especially with Airbnb launching their new services portal a few months back. But that unfortunately does not make you anything extra as the host when your guests book. So, launching your own upsells is a guaranteed way to bring in an additional source of revenue for your short term rental. And our partners do make this very easy for you to do. For example, one of our partners, the Host Co., allows you to offer your own amenities and services directly to guests, such as early check-in, late checkout, mid-stay cleans, or amenities like firewood or anything else you could possibly imagine that you'd want to offer directly. We have done some sessions with them in the past. They're a great tool for you to use. But today we're going to be more focused on point three, which is local activities, experiences, rentals, and services. And that's where our partners at Localbird can step in to help. So why upsell experiences? Why should you be considering adding something like Localbird to your guest experience? I've already kind of alluded to the fact that you can make extra revenue and you can expect to bring in kind of that additional stream. But ultimately, what it comes down to is guests are wanting more than just a place to sleep. Right now, over half of travelers are prioritizing trips focused on local attractions, but a minority of vacation rental operators are actually monetizing this demand through add-ons. And this means a couple of things. First, meeting this demand by providing local recommendations is a great way to enhance guest satisfaction, which leads to better reviews and ultimately repeat guests. And second, this offers you the perfect opportunity to help yourself stand apart from your competition. A great example of this is that I'm actually heading out of town tomorrow myself for a quick getaway this weekend. And when I got down to a few options left for the rental that I wanted to stay in, it came down to all the extras that the host was offering. So I ended up going with somebody that made booking these additional experiences easy. And I went with somebody that seemed to have all those extra perks that the other places did not have. So you can see some of the numbers here of how important these activities have been to travelers and the amount of spending growth on experiences since 2019, and it just keeps going up and up from there. So some of the effects of upsells. So to recap these effects, you as the host have the opportunity to bring in additional incremental revenue. You have the opportunity to increase your direct bookings by enhancing your guest experience, which means enhancing your brand image to stand apart from others, as well as improving guest loyalty. You have the opportunity to provide a better guest experience to lead to better and more reviews. And we've also seen clients able to reduce guest inquiries during their stay by offering pre-stay booking options. And lastly, it does give you more control over what should be your own revenue stream versus a third-party revenue stream. So some of the challenges here that we see hosts face that we're going to get into a little bit more now is just kind of knowing the right time to offer these experiences in order to make the most of them, not necessarily knowing what to recommend, not knowing which options to offer, providing these options in a smooth and seamless way, and then of course, which platforms or methods are going to be best to push these offerings. So that said, I'm going to pass it off to Ben now to talk a little bit more about how Localbird offers a five-star guest experience. Oh, and Ben, you are muted too.
Thanks for that as well. I was just um, saying thank you so much. So before I go into what Localbird does, I kind of want to talk a little bit about the issue with upselling and how it happens today. A lot of property managers will do it basically like have staff members do the upselling, but the problem is that it takes up a lot of their time, and they don't currently have the tools that they need in order to do it in a way that is effective and allowing guests to book online. Um, so, what happens is, this basically your team needs to be focused on the core business, which is property management, right? It's not concierge services or selling experiences. On the other hand, you want to offer those experiences to guests. Um, so we built Localbird in order to kind of build an easy way for hosts to offer high-end concierge services to their guests without having to put in any effort or have their team have to deal with it at all. Basically, Localbird is an extension of your team that handles all the recommendations, bookings, support of everything there is to do in the area. So we'll actually go out, find the local vendors. We have a network of over 3,000 vendors across Latin America and the US that basically, you know, give guests really amazing experiences. And we integrate with, all the PMSs in order to have the context of the guest stay so we can really personalize that experience for guests. And, the result is a highly personalized, high-end concierge experience where guests are no longer just going to the host for the stay, but also being able to book everything else throughout their stay through the hosts, everything being aligned with the host brand and everything being super kind of consistent throughout their journey. Um, and yeah, that's a Localbird in a nutshell. And kind of the key is creating a really personalized experience for guests and not making it feel like you kind of dish them off to a third party platform or OTA, but really making sure the experience is on brand and with the human touch. Um, so yeah, I mean, for guests, they ask for things like tours, activities, transportation, massages, private chefs. And when they ask hosts what they have to do, if they want to do it themselves, is basically call the vendor, ask if they have availability, try to coordinate, try to get a commission out of that, and all that manual work takes our focus off of the core business. So, uh, yeah, I mean, basically, we kind of built Localbird in order to give a high-end guest experience without the extra work.
Yeah, I think if there's one thing, I've talked to so many property managers and operators, and if there's one thing they all have in common is that not a single one of them has extra time. In fact, there's like barely any time to get everything done in any given day, right? So I've found with every service that we offer at StayFi that kind of takes some of that burden of time off of hosts, those are the ones that tend to be most attractive to people. So I think that this is something that really sets you guys apart is the low lift of getting it set up, but also the low lift of maintaining while being able to pull in that additional revenue. So I think that's great.
Yeah, totally. So, we've over the years have been kind of looking at what are the top things that are in high demand and what are guests actually booking? What are the key revenue drivers for hosts when it comes to upselling and concierge services? And we see that, the common themes are that, first of all, transportation. Every guest needs transportation, and in a lot of parts of the world, you don't really know who to trust. If you go to the airport, oftentimes there's countries where there's no Uber, and in some areas, especially non-urban areas, Uber isn't the best option. Where if we take Latin America as an example, you'll show up to the airport and there will be like 100 taxi drivers all trying to kind of um, pick you up, and oftentimes doubling the price that you would pay if you had a trusted local recommendation. So as a host, you have a unique opportunity to be that source of trust for the guest, because they already are staying with you. They already, you already have that connection, that any recommendation you give them, they're much more likely to book it than if they were to go online and have to book it themselves. Because at the end of the day, they know that you care about the review, and that you really want them to have a good experience, and that's why they'll trust you for those high-end recommendations. Next, is food and dining. Everyone needs to eat. And no one really knows where to go. And as a local host, you have the network, and basically where to go, as well as being able to recommend chefs. Um, After that, wellness is a big one, like massages, yoga, stuff like that. And one of the key kind of high ticket value types of upsells are experiences. Now, this will vary per market, but in every um, experience-rich destination, or travel destination, there is usually that thing that people go to do, whether it's kayaking or renting a snowmobile or skiing, or horseback riding. Being able to make finding those things and booking those things super easy actually really gives a lot of value to guests. And it's a way for guests to see you as, more than, uh, just a host, but like really a kind of a local companion. And that connection that you build by recommending them amazing experiences, can really impact, first of all, the reviews that you get from those guests. We see guests like going on and on about how amazing of an experience they had, um, in the Airbnb and booking reviews. And on the other side, being able to generate, massive amounts of money through upsells. Oftentimes, we're seeing in specific markets, you can generate more through upselling boat tours and private chefs and massages, if done right and successful, than you can from the stay itself. And we have some examples of that as well. Because if you think about it, if a guest is booking, spending, let's say, $1,000 on experiences, with their chef, their massage, let's say they do that one day, um, that can be like between $100 and $200 in commissions. Um, and a lot of guests will book their whole itinerary through the concierge if the concierge kind of makes that stuff accessible. So we have a case study of one of our partners, Crane, in Costa Rica. They have over 150 luxury rentals. When we met them, they had an in-house team. They still have an in-house team. Basically, it's their guest experience team that split the work between reservations of the properties and concierge. And um, it was a lot on their operation to do that, and they saw Localbird as an opportunity to kind of um, make their lives easier and their team more focused on their core business, um, and add a lot of revenue from all the experiences that we had to offer in the area. Within, the first week, they were already generating a lot of revenue. By like the first 2 months, it was already over 100K in bookings, in which, with 10 to 15% commission, that's 10 grand a month. So, they've been doing pretty well. And and yet you can see the impact on revenue as well as on guest experience. 40% of their guests actually add experiences to their stay. Um, so it's pretty significant. We have people booking
Yeah.
itineraries, and those are really high ticket items.
Yeah, and one of the things I find with folks who start offering upsells is a little bit of hesitancy not to be too salesy. I think one thing to keep in mind as a host is that a lot of these experiences or services are things that your guests are going to book anyway. They have to get from the airport to their rental somehow, some way. So why not have it be through their trusted host, their trusted short-term rental operator, where they are going to feel safer and better for doing so. You're not necessarily upselling them on something they might not have done otherwise. However, there is also the opportunity to have them book something they might not have booked otherwise, again, through a trusted source, while you get to pocket some of the extra revenue and provide them with a better experience. So something like this, especially after reading a case study like that, it's a no-brainer, right?
Yeah.
Beautiful. So somebody did ask if we get a copy of this presentation. Yes, all of our recordings of every webinar we've done will be on StayFi's webinar channel, YouTube channel. So you will have um, link to be able to get there. You can always message sales@support.com if you don't have it in your email. And then Ben, a question for you. Somebody asked, how do you compare to Viator and what sets you apart there?
Yeah, so our platform is built specifically for hosts. From day one, that was our model. We're going to partner with hosts, and therefore we've built every host page, and like the whole guest experience is on brand with the host or property manager that we're partnering with. So the guest gets an experience that is basically showing that the host is the one recommending these experience. Um, and the commissions are higher because we work directly with all of our providers. We enable hosts to also invite their own vendors to the platform, so they can see anywhere between 10 to 15% commission or higher. Um, I think Viator sits at around like 7 or 8%. Um, Now, yeah, I think the combination of those two things also leads me to the last and final thing is that we cater to high-end um, luxury rentals, meaning if a guest wants to book a one-on-one call with a concierge on our team. They can do that too to help plan their itinerary. And we're much higher touch with the guest than any of the OTAs are. Why? Because we know we're dealing with vacation rentals, we're dealing with people's vacations, and they're staying, oftentimes spending thousands of dollars on experiences. And it's a different product, basically.
Yeah, and just to hound that in a little bit more too, Viator is another one of our partners here, so they're another great resource for you. But like Ben said, Localbird pays out a higher commission. Viator sits right at 8%. So there's the opportunity to make additional with Localbird. Viator also is not created for this industry, so they are created for the travel industry versus the short-term rental industry. And another thing Ben said that's very important is being able to add your own vendors and experiences to Localbird is another thing that sets it apart. That process is a bit more hefty when it comes to Viator. So the ease of being able to do that and having that option is great as well. And Amelia, I do see your question. I'll come back to that a little bit later as well. It's a great question. All right, so switching over to how to get your upsells in front of guests, how and when. StayFi does offer a couple of options for you to take advantage of on this front. Firstly, you are going to want to ensure that you are using guest messaging tools, whether that be through your PMS or through StayFi. If you do not tell your guests what you have to offer, they will not know, plain and simple. So you'll want to be sure to update your pre-arrival messaging to include any upsells or experiences that you're offering. Second, with StayFi's guest data collection, our core service, you do have the ability to reach every single guest that stays at your property rather than just the person who booked it. So the more often, the sooner, and the more people you get these experiences in front of, the more you can plan on selling. Third, StayFi's homepage gives you the ability to promote these upsells to every guest within a localized guest landing page, a custom branded one. And lastly, Localbird's external experience marketplace allows your guests a seamless place to explore their destination and to start booking. So a little bit more about the localized guest landing page that I had mentioned. StayFi's homepage gives you a place to provide all of your essential links that guests may need to access during their stay. This is one of the main ways our customers drive folks to make purchases with Localbird or for any other upsells that they do offer. When you set this homepage up, you will have the ability to create custom buttons that will link out to wherever you want to redirect guests to, such as for essential guest information regarding their stay, upselling storefronts, or a button like you see here that would lead to Localbird experiences and activities. And I'll show you a couple more examples of how you can make the most of your homepage a little later on too. Firstly, though, I'm going to cover how the homepage kind of appears naturally for all of your guests through our main service. As many of you probably already know, StayFi specializes in guest data collection for all guests. And the way that we do that is through the Wi-Fi. So the idea here is the same as you might see at a hotel or an airport, where when a guest goes to log into the Wi-Fi, they're met with a custom branded splash page first, which allows you to collect validated contact information and marketing consent from every guest that stays at your properties. This information then ports over to your StayFi dashboard, and the splash page gives you a chance to build your own brand up as well, rather than just being referred to as an Airbnb. So the way that this works from a guest perspective is pretty straightforward. The guest will first select the network on their device. The splash page pops up so the guest can enter their information, and then they're automatically redirected to that homepage. So this is how we get that information in front of every guest that stays with you rather than just the booker. And while this is where the homepage shows up naturally, you also have the option to share this page through email, SMS, through a link, or even through a QR code. So, for example, if you have marketing automations already, you can update these or you can set these up through StayFi as well to make it so that as soon as a guest logs into the Wi Fi, they receive a text or an email. Hey, welcome to the property. Here's all the information you need. Here's our contact information. And hey, here's a link to that homepage you saw earlier where you can book all of this cool stuff. Or if you wanted to do something like print that QR code and put it somewhere at the property for guests to scan, you can do it that way. While I am a physical person, I like the physical guidebooks and whatnot. It does tend to be better than a physical guidebook because you can update this information remotely without needing to reprint anything and get into your properties again. So again, when to offer your upsells to guests, it's very straightforward. The sooner and the more often guests see your offerings, the more you're going to sell. You will want to include this in your pre-arrival messaging, either through StayFi or through your PMS to offer items like early check-ins or experiences to those who plan and book ahead. And then you're also going to want to be sure to include this in your in-stay messaging for guests that book a little bit later via either your PMS, automated messaging, QR codes, whatever it might be. But overall, you want to make sure that you are giving your guests options before the stay. This data here in this little chart shows that 73% of people book their activities online ahead of their trip. So you can see that big spike there that people are booking typically or most typically about 1 to 7 days before their trip. Sometimes that tends to be a little bit further out if it's something like an international trip where the planning takes place ahead of time. But overall, that 1 to 7 day window is going to be the spot. Tracy, I'll come back to that question at the end too. Thank you for that. Um, a couple more numbers on this matter, but the main point here is that the operators we see have the most success with upsells are sending this information out at the time of booking in their automated pre-arrival messaging 5 to 7 days before the trip, and then again after check-in. So how to add Localbird to your StayFi homepage. We did touch on it a little bit already, but I just want to cover this once more in a little bit more detail to ensure that you are making the most of the Localbird and StayFi integration. Some operators choose to add only one main button for Localbird for a more hands-off experience, but others take it a step further by adding multiple tiles to showcase kind of different products, adding specific top-selling items or experiences, including custom loyalty programs, special partnerships, and of course, listening to your guests and their feedback to adapt these offerings to what works for you as a host. I had somebody ask a question. I mentioned earlier that when I booked my getaway for this weekend, the thing that made a difference for me when I got down to the final like 4 or 5 rentals is just the extra perks that the host offered that none of the others did. So it helped them to stand apart. And somebody asked, what were the perks that caught my attention? Outside of the fact that they really emphasized that they have all the local knowledge on, kind of what the locals do versus what the tourists do, which of course, that's kind of what everybody wants. They also made it very clear in their posting for their listing that they have exclusive partnerships with activities in the area. And they listed all these different things that they would provide 10, 15, 20% off for. So already I'm feeling better by booking through them, but they're also giving me a discount on those services too. So I thought that was really cool. I maybe spent a little bit more money on the rental, but I am saving a bunch of money on the activities. So it definitely worked for me. That's a great question. All right, where am I here? So we do have, this is actually a live StayFi customer. This is an example of one of our clients and how they've driven more upsells through their homepage. Not only have they provided information related to their business and the guest stay, but they have made it easy for guests to book things like a future stay or find local restaurant recommendations, getting help planning their trip through AI concierge, purchasing early check-in, late checkout, and much more. So you can kind of have as many buttons or as little as you'd like, again, to kind of personalize that experience for your guests specifically. And the good news is that all of these home pages are property specific. So if you have properties in different cities, or let's say you want to advertise different stuff for your larger properties or your family friendly ones, different than, the smaller condos, you can kind of customize that too pretty simply from your StayFi dashboard. Ben, I saw that question come in. Did you want to address that?
Yeah, totally. So the question was, can I choose which upsells I offer via Localbird, or is it all or nothing? Thanks, Michelle, for the question. So totally, you can choose and completely customize which experiences you want to show or hide. You can even invite your own vendors. And the page is completely customizable by you, and it's very easy and intuitive. I'd be happy to dive deeper and show you.
Beautiful. All right. And then this is just another case study that we did with another client of ours. We were able to dig into the data a little bit more, and we found that they were able to generate an additional 12K per year across their properties. And that is a bit lower than the number Ben had mentioned before. They have significantly less rentals, though. And the key point here is that they did it only by offering late checkout, early check-in, and local attraction. So there was no heavy lifting from their team whatsoever. So that's a great example of, this is kind of the bare minimum you might want to do. This is a little bit lower lift, lower maintenance. Or you could do something like this where you are really taking guest feedback, figuring out what works, updating this for the seasons, being, specific, checking reviews of activities. So, like a lot of things in terms of property management, it just depends on how much time you want to spend on something like this. Great. And then it's worth mentioning for anybody that is new to StayFi here, you can be sure to use the code Localbird for 50% off your first 3 months with us. For any of our current StayFi clients, if you do need any more StayFi devices, you are welcome to message us at sales@stayfi.com and just mention Localbird or this webinar for 10% off of your next purchase. Um, and then Ben, do you want to tell us a little bit more about how folks can sign up for Localbird and maybe any specials that you're offering too?
Yeah, sure. Uh, Sign up is very simple. You can either do a self sign up and then we can have a call and walk you through it, uh, or self serve. And we're happy to offer your guests $100 towards their first experience. And we can do that across your first 10 guests. So basically, really driving those initial bookings for your guests to show you how impactful upselling can be. So more than happy to talk and show you how it goes.
Beautiful. And I think that's super powerful too. That's what I'm just mentioning with my trip coming up, that extra $100 off, that would make a huge difference in me deciding to book your place versus anybody else's. So it's a great offer to take advantage of. And with that, I know it's a little bit shorter today. I'm a bit of a fast talker, so I appreciate you all bearing with me here. We have plenty of time for any questions, for anything that we might want to expand on or anything that we didn't touch on. I've got just one question here so far. Somebody asked, this is just a question that relates to StayFi's main service more in general, but it says, I have a lot of families at my properties and kids need Wi-Fi passwords. How do they get in if they need to enter email/phone? Do they just use the parents' info? So a couple parts to this question. First and foremost, StayFi does allow the ability to have a password or not. So if you want to keep your network secure and have that password, you're more than welcome to. You just enable that directly on your StayFi dashboard. So it's very easy to toggle on and off or even to edit it or change what the password would be. And with our main devices, it is one password and one network across all of your properties. So you will be able to update this all at the same time without having to, call Spectrum, call Cox, whatever it may be, and spend a bunch of time on hold. The second thing is that it kind of depends on the kid's age. If they're 16 and they have their own email, they're typically going to just enter their own, right? They certainly know how to do that. Typically, they will not consent to marketing on that page. But if you do have a lot of family centered properties and you're worried about collecting kids' information, you can either have an 18 plus checkbox on that splash page, or you can have a date of birth field too, which also works for things like email promotions for like birthday specials and stuff like that. If the kid is young enough, then yes, they will typically just use the parents' info, in which case our dashboard combines all of that data automatically. So we kind of do that heavy lifting for you. So hopefully that helped to answer that question. Somebody said, I'm curious to see what the back end looks like. I don't know if that's in terms to StayFi or to Localbird. Either way, with StayFi, you are more than welcome to go to stayfi.com. There is a 5-minute demo video on there that yours truly did that does show off the back end a lot more and a lot better than I could do on the spot here anyway. Or you can always create an account at stayfi.com. It is totally free. It will ask for card info, but you're not charged until you actually activate the service. And you can kind of poke through there yourself. And we also have customer success managers that will help you get the service up and running. So while it is self-serve, you will not be on your own. Ben, do you have anything you want to add to that on the local bird side?
Yeah, so if the question was for Localbird, then basically it is also 100% free. You can sign up and see how it works, or we're happy to jump on a 15-minute call, 15 to 20-minute call, show you how it works so you can kind of get your answers. Basically, you can see your reports on how much you're earning, what your guests are viewing, what they're booking. You can curate different experiences and kind of control what the customer experience looks like. Um, and you can kind of play around with like automated messages and the guest journey and stuff like that, and some more interesting stuff. But happy to kind of show you rather than tell you. And I see there's another question regarding costs. So Localbird is a operates on a rev share model. So if you don't make any money, we don't make any money. There's no subscriptions or anything like that. We basically will find the local vendors, get a commission, and share the revenue with you if the guest books anything. So there's no risk to joining.
Beautiful. Low lift, low setup efforts, low cost of entry. It just kind of hits on all the points. Lots of potential. So it appears that that is all of the questions that have come in thus far. Like I said, if you'd like to reach us here at StayFi post webinar, just go ahead and shoot us an email at sales@stayfi.com, and myself or my team will be able to help you out. Ben, do you have a good email that people can reach you guys out there?
Yeah, it's ben@localbird.io.
Beautiful, easy enough. All right. Otherwise, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Ben, so much for joining, and thank you, everyone, for being here as well. Like I mentioned, this recording will be on StayFi's YouTube channel. So if you don't receive it in the next couple days, feel free to email us here, and we can get that link over to you. Otherwise, thanks again, everyone, and I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your week.
Thank
Bye,
you so
everyone.
much. Bye.